I never thought death would bring me more pain than life. But as I lay in my coffin, unable to move, unable to speak, I felt her fingers on mine, warm, shaking, pretending to mourn. The woman everyone whispered about. The woman who stole my husband's heart while I was wasting away, growing weaker day after day. She stood beside my casket with a practiced face of grief, tears drawn in place like stage makeup. I heard someone call her his friend. A friend? She was nothing but a thief, a quiet destroyer of everything I built. People think the dead cannot feel, but they are wrong. I felt her presence so clearly, so painfully, I wished I could rise and scream. My family deserved to know who she really was, what she really wanted. That is why I planned everything before I took my final breath. For years, I gathered every trace of her. Receipts, texts, the lies my husband told, the jewelry that vanished from my drawers. Even while dying, I refused to close my eyes until I made sure she would never win. I left a letter with my lawyer, sealed and clear, to be read the day they buried me. It was my last chance to speak. To defend myself. She squeezed my lifeless hand as if she owned me. As if my memory belonged to her. I burned with a rage so strong I thought my heart might beat again just to defy her. I heard a murmur in the church, "Isn't that his friend? She looks so upset." And another reply, "She was there for him through the illness." I wanted to laugh, she was there like a crow waiting for a corpse, feeding on my fading life. My grandson stood near the coffin, and his face was hard, suspicious. He had doubted her for a long time, I knew that. And I knew he would find strength in the words I left behind. They said prayers, sang songs, laid lilies on my chest. But the true moment of peace came when my lawyer stepped forward with the letter. He held the yellowed paper in his steady hands and cleared his throat. That was my final gift to myself, the truth, unvarnished, unstoppable. Even from the grave. My heart may have stopped, but my voice would still be heard. If you are listening to this story, don't let people silence you. Share what you learn, tell the truth, and never look away from injustice. If you want to follow how this ends, stay with me for the next chapter. They thought I was resting in peace. That the coffin had silenced me for good. But my letter was stronger than any breath I ever took in life. I wrote every line with the clarity that only dying can give you. There is no more fear, no more shame, only truth. The lawyer opened the folded paper, and a hush spread through the church. You could almost hear the lilies trembling against the polished wood of my coffin. My family was there, holding hands, too stunned to move. And she, the woman with her false tears, tried to smile as if nothing could touch her. But my words did. I started the letter by naming her. I refused to let her hide behind polite titles or made-up excuses. I called her what she was, the woman who stole what was mine. I listed the dates, the secret hotel bookings, the missing jewelry, the bank withdrawals. I wrote it all down. Every ugly detail. As the lawyer read, her face shifted from sweet grief to horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She tried to interrupt, but the lawyer continued. Nothing could stop my truth. I told my family how I had tried to fight for my marriage, how I begged my husband to stay with me, to respect our vows while I was sick. How he turned away, how he spent hours with her while I lay in bed, alone, wishing for a kind word. They needed to know. My grandson looked straight at her, a quiet fury rising in him. I had worried he would fall for her act, that he would believe she had been a friend. But the letter freed him from doubt. It freed all of them. I even wrote about my forgiveness, because forgiveness was the only thing that would save me from turning bitter even beyond the grave. I forgave my husband for his weakness. I forgave her for her greed. But I refused to let either of them win. At the end of the letter, I made sure my will was crystal clear, not 1 cent, not 1 ring, not 1 piece of my legacy would ever reach her hands. She stepped back, as if struck. Someone gasped. Another person whispered, "I can't believe she knew." Of course I knew. We women know. We feel betrayal in our bones. I closed my letter with one final wish, that my family would learn to speak up, to protect each other, to never let lies grow in the dark. She ran from the church before the service ended. She could not stand to hear how I had seen through her, how I had beaten her at her own cruel game. I wanted my family to remember me as someone who did not bow, who did not break, even when the world tried to erase me. That was my true gift to them, a legacy of courage. As the choir sang its final hymn, I felt lighter. My hands were still, but my heart felt free. If you have ever loved someone who betrayed you, let my story remind you, your silence is never the answer. Tell it, write it, scream it if you have to. Because the truth, once spoken, cannot be buried. They thought it would end with my letter. That after her name was exposed, after the church fell silent and she ran out humiliated, she would simply vanish. But I knew her better than that. A woman who can stand next to a coffin and pretend to mourn the person she helped destroy is capable of much more. In the days after my funeral, I felt her presence lingering around the house I built. My grandson told me she tried to come back, knocking on the door late at night, demanding to take what she claimed was hers. I deserve it, she screamed, her voice breaking through the night air. He loved me more than he ever loved her. I could almost hear those words through the walls of death. They cut as deeply as knives, but no longer had power over me. I had already chosen peace. I had already chosen truth. My family, though, was terrified. They had never truly seen her anger before, only her sweet, rehearsed sympathy. Now she showed her real face, wild and vengeful. She tried to push past my grandson, tried to force herself inside, claiming she needed to say goodbye properly. What she really wanted was to search for anything she might still steal, a ring, a piece of jewelry, a last thread of dignity. But my grandson, bless him, stood tall. "There's nothing left for you here," he told her. "You've taken enough." She screamed, kicked at the door, cursed my name. All of it washed over me like wind through autumn leaves. I had nothing left to fear. Even her hatred felt small and pathetic. After that night, they filed a restraining order. She would not be allowed to come near my house, my family, or even the place where I now rest. Some might say I was cruel to leave her with nothing. But I disagree. Cruelty is stealing love from a dying woman and pretending it is kindness. Cruelty is feeding off the lonely hours of someone fighting for her last breath. I did not owe her comfort. I owed my family freedom. And so I made sure she could never touch another penny of what I built. I made sure my family could begin to heal without her shadow poisoning them. The next week, I felt the house breathe again. My granddaughter played music, and laughter started to slip through the hallways. The food tasted like food again, not something forced down through grief. They were living. They were recovering. And I, though long gone, was part of that healing. If you have ever watched someone pretend to love you while destroying you, I hope you will find the same courage I did. You do not have to forgive what is unforgivable. You do not have to leave open doors for people who only wish you harm. Even if the world says to stay quiet, to keep the peace, you deserve to protect your heart. My peace was a single letter, signed with my name, spoken out loud on a day meant to bury me. That letter was louder than any scream I could have made in life. And when the echo of that truth finally settled, no one could look at her the same again. That was my true victory. After she was gone, my family finally saw the world in color again. It was as if someone had lifted a black veil that had been pressing against every window, every mirror, every smile. I had worried, near the end, that my husband's betrayal would stain their memories of me. I feared they would remember only my weakness, my sickness, the way I begged for his kindness. But instead, they remembered my courage. They remembered how I stood up for myself, even from a coffin. That house had been my sanctuary. Every picture on the wall, every worn-out step on the staircase, carried my fingerprints. I cleaned those floors, I planted flowers in the yard, I cooked 1,000 meals with love and hope. I refused to let that woman, who saw me only as an obstacle, take any of it from the people who truly loved me. My grandson and granddaughter told me they could finally breathe there again. No more fear of her walking through the door, no more suspicion poisoning their meals. No more guilt. They started to open the windows. They let fresh air in. They let music play. It reminded me of the early days, when my children were small and I believed love would protect me from every harm. My husband stayed quiet for weeks. He did not dare challenge my final letter. Maybe he felt shame, or maybe relief that I did the speaking for him. He had chosen weakness, and that weakness made him silent now. I do not hate him. I pity him. When you build your life on a lie, eventually you have to watch it collapse. He did not fight for her. He did not stand up and claim her. That alone told me everything I ever needed to know about the depth of their so-called love. One day, my granddaughter sat in the living room, tracing my wedding ring with her small fingers. "Grandma," she whispered, "I hope I never have to fight like you did." "I hope so too, my sweet child. I hope no one ever betrays you the way they betrayed me. But if they do, I hope you will be braver than I was in life. I hope you will speak the moment you feel something is wrong. That is the lesson I leave behind, that silence is a thief far worse than any lover. The house I left them is more than walls and wood. It is a memory of dignity. It is a promise that the ones who truly belong will always have a place here, protected, honored." When my granddaughter hung a small picture of me near the front door, I felt peace. As if I had come home again, without anger, without fear. This was the legacy I wanted, not revenge, but truth. Not hate, but a warning that no one should be allowed to steal your worth and rewrite your name while you're still breathing, or after you're gone. If you are listening to my story, I want you to remember that. Guard your name, guard your heart, and never apologize for demanding respect. My hands may never hold them again, but they will always feel me in every step they take across that house. I was the heart of that home, and no mistress could ever steal that away. I had feared death all my life. I worried about what would happen to my children, my house, my name. But standing in this stillness, I realized something: death did not erase me. It only freed me. My family spoke of me in soft voices, remembering my strength more than my weakness. They laughed sometimes, telling stories of when I was young, brave, a woman who worked with her hands and never turned away from hard truths. That was the part of me I wanted to live on, not the sick, fragile wife abandoned in her last days, but the woman who fought for what she built. My husband grew older, quieter. He visited my grave, though he rarely spoke. Once, he left a single white rose and a note that simply read, "I'm sorry." I forgave him long before that moment. Forgiveness was for me, not for him. I watched the seasons change around the house I had loved so much. The roses I planted bloomed again. The paint on the porch was refreshed. Laughter grew stronger in its rooms. The shadow of that woman was gone, replaced by light and honest memory. My granddaughter found a necklace in my old sewing box, a simple gold chain I had meant to give her one day. She wore it with pride, holding it like a shield, a symbol that we do not have to let people define us. I smiled, knowing I had left a message more powerful than any gravestone: protect your voice, even after you can no longer speak. One evening, my grandson stood in the yard where I had once planted daisies. He looked at the sunset and spoke softly to no one in particular, "Grandma, you won." And yes, I did win. Because my name was saved. Because my story was told. Because the woman who tried to replace me could never rewrite who I was. In that peace, I rested. My family had learned what I could not teach them while I was alive, that silence is a dangerous prison, and truth is the only key that sets you free. I hope that anyone hearing my story understands this: if someone ever tries to steal your place, your voice, your love, do not bow. Do not break. And even if you lose everything, even if you face the grave itself, hold on to your truth. Because even death cannot bury a voice that dares to rise. This is where I leave you, listener. I have no more words to give, only this last wish: live with courage. Protect your dignity. And never let fear keep you quiet. If my story has touched you, if it has made you think, I hope you will share it. I hope you will let others hear these words so they know they are not alone. Leave a comment if you have ever felt invisible, so we can remind each other that our stories matter, no matter how painful they are. And, if you wish to keep hearing voices like mine, stay with us. You are welcome here, always.